She sat at the corner table in the soft glow of the afternoon sun, pretending not to notice that the chair across from her had been empty for almost an hour. The iced tea in front of her had melted into a watery blur, just like the fragile hope she had carried into that cafe. Outside, cars passed under the bright daytime sky. People laughed, doors chimed open and shut, and life moved forward as if her humiliation were invisible. But to her, it felt deafening. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whisper Tales 3. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the worst moments lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Maira Qureshi had always been the kind of girl who blended into the background. At 26, she worked long shifts as a waitress at a busy family restaurant downtown, memorizing orders better than she memorized compliments, because there had never been many of those. She was shy, soft-spoken, and painfully self-conscious about the birthmark that curved like a faded crescent along her jaw. Customers rarely remembered her name. Some barely looked at her when she refilled their coffee. Still, she worked hard, smiled politely, and carried on. Her coworker had insisted she try a blind date, promising that the man, Harris, was different. Maira had almost said no, but that morning she had woken up determined to be brave. She wore her favorite pale blue dress, the one that made her feel lighter somehow, and braided her hair neatly over one shoulder. For once, she allowed herself to imagine being seen, not as the shy waitress, but as someone worth choosing. Harris arrived 20 minutes late. He barely apologized. He glanced at his phone more than he looked at her. His eyes drifted over her face, pausing just long enough on her birthmark to make her stomach tighten. He spoke about himself, his job, his car, his gym routine, never once asking about her life beyond polite obligation. When his phone buzzed again, he stood abruptly, muttered something about an urgent meeting and walked out. He did not look back. He did not offer to reschedule. He simply disappeared into the brightness of the afternoon. Maira stayed seated long after he left, as though moving would confirm what she already feared, that she was forgettable. She finally stood when the waiter gently placed the bill on the table, unaware that she herself spent her days doing the same thing for others. She paid for both drinks without protest. Outside, the sunlight felt harsher now. She walked slowly back toward the restaurant where her shift would begin in less than an hour, each step heavy with embarrassment. She told herself she should have known better than to hope. The lunch rush was already building when she tied her apron and stepped onto the floor. The restaurant buzzed with the clatter of plates and the hum of conversation. Families filled the booths, sunlight streaming through the wide front windows. Maira slipped into her routine like armor, pad in hand, polite smile, eyes lowered just enough to avoid lingering stares. Then the door chimed, and a man stepped inside holding the hand of a little girl with wild curls and a glittery backpack shaped like a butterfly. The man looked slightly out of breath, like someone juggling too many responsibilities at once. His name, she would later learn, was Rayyan Malik. He scanned the room with a quiet patience, adjusting the small pink hair clip slipping from his daughter's curls. Maira approached their table with her practiced calm. The little girl beamed at her instantly, as children often did before the world taught them to judge. The man offered a tired but sincere smile. There was something different about the way he looked at her, not lingering, not dismissive, just present. He thanked her when she brought water. He listened when she explained the specials. When his daughter accidentally knocked over her juice, he apologized repeatedly, embarrassment coloring his face, but Maira simply knelt to clean it, assuring him it was no trouble. Throughout their meal, she noticed the way he cut his daughter's food into careful pieces, the way he wiped ketchup from her cheek with gentle fingers. The girl, Abeha, chattered endlessly about school and butterflies and how her daddy packed her lunch every day. Maira felt something warm bloom in her chest watching them. It wasn't romance, not yet. It was recognition of devotion. When Abeha asked for extra napkins for my butterfly collection, Maira laughed softly, and Rayyan's eyes caught the sound. For the first time that day, she didn't feel invisible. As they prepared to leave, Abeha tugged at her father's sleeve and whispered loudly enough for Maira to hear that she liked the nice lady with the moon on her face. Maira instinctively touched her birthmark, bracing for pity. Instead, Ryan crouched beside his daughter and said something that made Maira's breath hitch. He told Abeja that the moon was beautiful because it shines even with shadows, and that some marks are reminders of how unique someone is. He straightened and looked directly at Maira when he said it. It was a simple moment, a small kindness. But after the mourning she had endured, it felt monumental. The next day he returned, and the day after that. Sometimes with Abeja, sometimes alone during his lunch break. He always asked for her section. He learned her name. He asked about her dreams, and she hesitated at first, unsure how to answer. No one had ever seemed interested before. Slowly she shared that she once wanted to study art but had dropped out to help her mother pay bills. She confessed she felt stuck. Ryan listened, not with the distracted nods of politeness but with genuine curiosity. He told her about losing his wife 3 years earlier, about learning to braid hair from YouTube videos at midnight, about the quiet loneliness of being strong for a child who still cried for her mother. His vulnerability softened something inside her. Weeks passed. Daylight lunches turned into slow afternoon coffees after her shift. Abeja began bringing Maira crayon drawings, stick figures with enormous smiles and a bright crescent moon carefully colored on one face. The restaurant staff noticed the change in her. She laughed more easily. She stood straighter. She began applying for evening art classes again, encouraged by Ryan's steady belief in her. One afternoon, as golden sunlight spilled across the pavement outside, Maira caught her reflection in the restaurant window. The birthmark was still there, the same crescent. But she no longer saw it as a flaw. She saw resilience. She saw someone who had endured rejection and remained gentle. Ryan didn't rescue her in a dramatic, cinematic way. He didn't sweep her off her feet. What he did was quieter but far more powerful. He noticed her. He respected her. He showed her that love does not arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it walks in holding a little girl's hand in the middle of an ordinary day. Months later, on a bright Saturday afternoon, Maira stood in a small community art gallery, her paintings displayed along the white walls. Ryan and Abeja stood proudly beside her, clapping louder than anyone else when her name was announced. The shy waitress who had once been ignored on a blind date was now standing in the light of her own talent, surrounded by people who saw her worth. Just before this story ends, take a moment to comment where you're watching from and share one act of kindness that changed your life, because here's the truth. Sometimes rejection is redirection. Sometimes the person who walks away clears the path for someone who stays. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Whisper Tales 3. Your support keeps stories of hope and second chances alive. As the afternoon sun filtered through the gallery windows, casting soft patterns on the floor, Maira felt something she had never felt before on a date or in a crowded restaurant. Certainty. Not certainty that life would be perfect or that challenges wouldn't come, but certainty that she was no longer invisible. She had been ignored once, dismissed without a second thought. And yet, in the ordinary brightness of a daytime shift, kindness had found her, and that kindness changed everything.